Okay, a few more terms in genetics. If you are homozygous for a certain gene, it means you have two of the same alleles. If you are heterozygous for a certain gene, it means you have two different alleles. Monogenic is an adjective used to describe a trait that is determined by just one gene pair. Polygenic traits are far more common. This means they are determined by more than one gene pair. You may hear that scientists are looking for the gay gene. This is an oversimplification on the part of the media. There's already evidence that there will be more than one gene of interest. Very few physical and behavioral traits are monogenic, determined by just one gene pair. Here's an interesting example of a rare trait that appears to be monogenic. Clasp your hands in front of you like this. Now note which thumb is on top, your left or your right. Believe it or not, this is actually genetically determined. Don't believe me? Try it the other way. Sure, you can do it, but it is clearly uncomfortable. You would never do it instinctively. By the way, left on top is believed to be dominant, so the symbols for that are capital L for left and a lowercase r. So tell me this, what would be the phenotype for the genotype two capital L's? And that would be left on top. What about a capital L and a lowercase r? That would be left also. What about two lowercase r's? Now that would be right on top. Something called trichotillomania is also monogenic. Have you ever known a child who had a habit of winding a very thin strand of their hair around a finger, then pulling it out? This is not that uncommon, and it is not really that big of a deal. It's not like the child has a bloody scalp because he only worked with thin strands at a time. But over time, they begin to develop a bald spot on their dominant, in other words, handedness side of their head. As parents, it is important to acknowledge that we cannot eliminate genetic behavior, but we can sometimes redirect it to a more functional expression. Trichotillomania is actually quite easy to redirect. Just buy the child a doll or a troll with a good head of hair and train them to carry it around and direct the behavior to the toy instead. If you do this, it's a good idea to make that doll or troll a birthday or Christmas gift. Why do you think? If you guess that each year they will need a new one because it will be nearly bald, you are correct. By the way, kids outgrow trichotillomania and thus their need for the toy as soon as they get old enough for social concerns to outweigh the genetic behavior. A widow's peak hairline, by the way, is another example of a monogenic trait. It peaks in the upper central forehead range and gives the face a heart-like shape when it is exposed. But again, it is actually rather difficult to find human examples of traits that are monogenic because so few are. The important take-home message here is that most physical and behavioral traits, by far, are determined by more than one gene pair. They are polygenic. In our next segment, we will use the information that we have covered so far in this lecture to predict genes in future generations.